at the end of the day, this is, you're just going to have to wait and hope to get refunded and pick up the phone if you haven't. And, it is just, what can I say? It is a mess.
And here we are, looking for a hero and looking for someone to explain it all. And here she is, Maya Fisher-French. I want to ask you something first, and this is from the consumer. I got a message from a couple of companies saying to me, because of the 0.5% increase, it means that I'm going to pay extra on the debit order coming up soon. And then only a few of them said, never mind, but others haven't. What is happening there? Is this something that they've changed their systems? It's still going to debit more now. And I'm going to be, is there going to be a reimbursement happening there? So I want to know what is going to happen in that mess of the reversal of the 0.5.
Yeah, this is a real mess. I mean, can you imagine all these companies that have had to change systems, notify you, change all their debit orders, all for like 3 or 4 cents in many cases.
Yeah.
We're talking about 0.5. It wasn't a big number necessarily, but they had to go and do all of these things. So the bottom line is, I went to read exactly what our SARS commissioner said, and he said, go have a conversation with your supplier or your provider. That's the bottom line.
What? All that trouble because there's so many.
Yeah. So I suspect what's going to happen is, if the debit order is already put in place, right?
Yeah.
Remember, debit orders are loaded like 5 days before and all the rest of it. So if you have been charged an extra 0.5% on your bill, probably what they'll do is in the following month, most of these will be subscriptions, right? These will be regular. It's not just a one-off payment.
Correct.
They will then possibly do a refund on your next statement. But this is a mess. I mean, they're not going to have to go and do that. So I think that's going to be the way it is, because he said basically, by mutual agreement. That's what it is. So kind of, guys, it's up to you. I mean, I do, I suppose one has to look and think, if you're, it's on the couple of R100, that 0.5%, is it worth me going and even making the phone call and the email and arguing? I suppose some people will on principle, they're just going to feel very upset that they've had to pay, maybe up to 50 cents more or whatever. But, I think for most of us, we're just going to go, whatever. So I suspect that's going to be...
So are we going to go... I think... Yes, because obviously this thing would kick in tomorrow, right? I mean, when the debits come off tomorrow, we're going to see an extra percentage there. I mean, I hope that these larger companies who have a vast amount of debit orders taken from so many consumers are going to do the right thing and say, in the following months, we will reimburse that 0.5 or that little extra bit. Apologies for the inconvenience, because perhaps their systems are so big, it requires a long time for the IT department to get it sorted. So I'm hearing that the SARS boss, Edward Kisvetter, said that businesses have until 15 May to roll these things back. Is that true?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So from a business perspective, they have that opportunity to roll it back, and sort it all out. So it's just a lot of work. I think what I would like to just advocate here is, people are quite quick to get outraged.
Of course.
And just, remember, this is a remorse for everyone. This is right now. You do not want to be a company, and you're trying to deal with this. So just calm down, and if you feel very strongly, and obviously, look, I mean, people are saying, well, even if they're making an extra 50 cents per debit order, but if they're doing thousands and thousands, they're making a lot of money out of this. So possibly there is going to be that sort of massive volume opportunity for some of them. But, at the end of the day, this is, you're just going to have to wait and hope to get refunded and pick up the phone if you haven't. And, it is just, what can I say? It is a mess.
Yeah.
Because I have utmost sympathy for the businesses.
But here's the thing. So I'm just saying, I don't mean to be somebody who incites this, but if a company had to spend money to change the systems and to change these debits and to change these prices and to change the printing on the flyers, etc., for this particular incremental, this little increment to go up, I mean, what stops them from saying, hey, I'm going to sue the government for doing this because now I'm out of pocket. I printed all those flyers with our new prices. I mean, I'm just saying, what happens there?
Mean, I don't think they can, but
okay.
They will be. I think there's probably a lot of businesses listening right now saying, yes, go for it.
As I said, I'm not going to incite that. Remember, I'm
Don't incite
a
it.
voice of the consumer and the business in this regard, okay? So I will take every angle necessary to make sure that fairness is upheld. But let's
But you
talk.
must remember,
Yeah.
it gets worse because
What?
it's, no, because you're talking about the 0.5% VAT, but remember that there were a whole lot of zero-rated items as well. So all the retailers, all the grocery stores were updating their systems to no longer have VAT on, I think it was feet and bones and tongues and tinned vegetables.
Yes.
Remember. So it's not just the 0.5% VAT increase, it's also the items that were no longer going to have VAT. So, this is very complicated. And now on all those little stickers that, have to be updated at Pick and Pay.
Yes. I'm just as I said, I'm by no means inciting anything. I'm asking a question into the universe. That's all. I'm just going to throw it into the universe there, and we can go back to where are we at now? Now that we've retracted a 0.5% VAT increase, we have to have some sort of a budget. Now, of course, the record shows we have a 75 billion rand sized hole in our economy, given the fact that there's been a reversal. As it stands, do we have a budget to work from as a government? Because now, I'm assuming that the last budget has elapsed, which means we are in a limbo sort of area, aren't we?
We are, but we have a backstop. We must be
Okay.
very thankful that the lawmakers actually thought about this happening, even though it was never expected. And I do have to tell you,
Yeah.
we all became legal experts very quickly. We never thought we'd ever have to know this stuff, but now we did have to find out. So first of all, the 75 billion refers to the 3 years, so the medium-term budget.
Yes.
That's what that VAT reversal will be over 3 years. So right now we have basically how the budget works is that under Section 29 of the Public Finance Management Act, the government can spend up to 45% of last year's budget over the first 4 months. And then up to 10% for every month after that. So it's not like in the always in the US they talk about government shutdown and all that. That's not where we're at. We have
Great.
provision, so they will start to make allocations on that basis. And the new budget is to be tabled on the 21st of May. We hope for the last time this year. So, if that is passed, we certainly can get from here to the 21st of May without any issues. I think what's going to be more interesting is exactly what you're saying, what is going to be in that budget.
And what does your spidey senses tell you about 21 May, new budget, back and forth, postponement? We've seen it all. Honestly, this has literally been a soapy. We have seen it all. Characters have been killed off and they've come back to life. It's literally been that way. So what are you expecting the 21st of May, just in terms of a little vague look for anybody who's not perhaps financially savvy?
Well, I think one of the big concerns is that the world has become worse. The world economy has kind of dived. Our rand has dived. So remember, the budget works specifically on revenue. So everything matters about income, right? We all know that as households. Income determines our budget, largely. And our income is under threat because of tariff wars and the Trump effect and the rand falling. So the growth prospects for South Africa may not be the same as they were at the last budget, right? They're going to be updating those, and they may have to revise down our growth figures, which means that the revenue that they were hoping to get, even aside from the whole VAT story, could be less. Which means that now what do you do? so that's what I would be looking for. I'm going to say, well, what is the outlook for the economy? What does that mean for their projections of revenue? Do they think they can still get the same amount of taxes from the economy that is now not going to grow at the same rate they thought it would grow? So this is going to get even tighter and more challenging. So I think we obviously, one thing I'm fairly certain of is we're not going to see a VAT increase.
I think you're spot on there. Well done. I feel like that's where it's going. This is why this is why they pay you the big bucks.
This is why you pay me the big bucks, because I've seen the future. No VAT increase.
Okay, thank you.
You and I have discussed the fiscal, what we call the fiscal drag,
yes.
The fiscal creep, where they don't adjust salaries by the tax tables by inflation. Well, they really haven't adjusted. So they're definitely not going to be able to. They're not going to suddenly give us more tax back, right? So I don't know though if they would actually increase personal taxes. I would be very surprised if they do that, and the reason is that if you read the budget version 1 and 2, the National Treasury spoke about the fact that they've kind of reached this level where any additional personal income tax starts to increase tax evasion, and they're actually going to collect less tax if they increase taxes. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
So
yes.
we've kind of got to the top of what we can tax South Africans on their income. So we're not going to see, I think it would be very surprising to see any personal increases in personal tax. There's always this discussion about wealth tax, but nobody's quite sure what a wealth tax is and how it would work, because remember, we have wealth taxes. We get taxed on we have capital gains tax, we have dividends tax,
Yes.
we have tax on interest. Anything that you earn from your investments is taxable. So I can't see that necessarily suddenly out of the blue they're going to introduce a whole new wealth tax. So it's difficult to know where they're going to get more money from. They could increase excise taxes, that's your cigarettes and your alcohol. It's going to be a balancing act, whether or not they're going to try and increase taxes. Of course, the other thing you can do is cut spending. And this gets very difficult.
Yeah.
I think you and I could probably go through that budget and put a lot of lines through it.
Yes.
We but they are politically motivated, right?
Yeah.
So, where do you cut? And one of the big things is that generally everybody, when I say what do you want to see in the budget, I want to see more teachers, doctors, infrastructure. I want more protection for the poor, more. Well, they can't do any more. Because there is no money. So I think it's really going to be interesting. And the other big one to look for is our debt levels. So, we've kind of, the whole plan of this budget version 1 and 2 was to not allow our debt levels to increase anymore, because currently government spends 22 cents of every rand it collects on interest payments alone, just interest. And they do not want to increase that, because the more you're paying on interest, the less you have to spend on things that you really need to spend on. So whether or not they're going to allow that to go up and to borrow more, that is one that we're going to be watching, I think, very, very carefully. And then, of course, what we're going to see is the reaction to the budget and whether people believe anything that is going to come out of the budget anymore.
And that is another soapy as it stands, given our history. All right, 21 May, we have a fresh budget. Just in a nutshell, doesn't look like there's going to be a VAT increase. We tried that already. That didn't work. Of course, lots of interest in how we're going to increase the economy with less interventions. Hopefully no one is getting shortchanged or no one is going to suffer, although there's no guarantees in that. So it is about a question mark of where we're going to get this money, how we're going to make sure that the 75 billion rand hole is not felt over the short term. And then I think the next thing, just in a nutshell, maybe we can just go to the email, and if we get debited differently, that we need to send a mail to somebody and say, hey, 0.5 is cancelled now. What are you doing? I think that's a good nutshell from this particular conversation, Maya.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you so much once again. Guess what? Are you available around the 21st of May? I just think something might pop up where we need to chat again.
Okay, so my holidays are planned around the budget, okay? And I wasn't expecting to have to be in Parliament on the 21st of May, so I'm actually climbing on a plane on the 21st of May. So no, I will not be around.
Oh, you won't be around?
I'm not changing my holiday.
Good, okay. So where are you off? Are you off to overseas? Are you going to an island destination?
I am. No. I'm actually going to visit a family.
Wow.
So it's a long overdue family visit, and let me tell you, the rand needs to recover before the 21st.
Please. Yeah, no, I understand. Don't worry about it. Okay, well, enjoy a well-deserved break. We will definitely contact you when you're back and recovered from the holiday, because people need holidays from their holidays. Thank you for the information you provided thus far, and being a guiding light through what is a soapy of an economic situation in our country. It's always great to call you, and thank you very much for making the time for us here. And have a great holiday, but let's just make sure that we put in a thought to the universe for some balance. And, of course, no one needs to suffer. I don't want anybody to suffer from any of these drastic moves they may make to try and recover this 75 billion rand. So thank you, Maya.
Super. Thank you.
Have a beautiful one. That's Maya Fisher-French, our expert on finances, on your Flash Drive in KFM 94.5.
The Flash Drive with Carl Wasty. Only on KFM 94.5.